चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Welcome to all the devotees for this exclusive question answer session. You can post your questions on the live chat. I'll try to answer as many as possible in the next 1 hour. I already have 2 questions here. The first question is, does New Year Day or similar occasion have any significance in Krishna consciousness? In Krishna consciousness, certain days are considered very special or important, like the appearance day of Lord Krishna, Krishna Janmashtami, Ram Navami, and the beginning of the new year as per the Vedic calendar. So these are all very, very special occasions for enhancing our Krishna consciousness. So on such special days, we should try to increase our spiritual activities so that we derive more benefit, spiritual benefit, especially on such days. Next question. When the Vedas were written by Vyasa-deva, what did it contain at that time? Why did Vyasa-deva not know that the content of Srimad Bhagavatam also must be emphasized in Vedas when it was written first? Now, let me clarify what is meant by the Vedas and whatever the Vedas which are put down in writing by Vyasa-deva. Veda means knowledge. And when we refer to Vedic knowledge or Vedas, we specifically mean the spiritual part of the Vedas, the spiritual content of the Vedas, the transcendental knowledge. Because Vedas contain both material and spiritual knowledge. So when we say Vedas, we generally mean the spiritual content. Now, Vyasa-deva put down in writing what was already there. Vedas were first spoken by the Supreme Lord to Brahma, the first created being at the beginning of creation. In the Bhagavatam, this is explained. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. At the beginning of creation, Brahma, the first created being, was enlightened by the Supreme Lord Krishna, from whom Brahma was born. And Brahma was given the Vedic knowledge. And Brahma passed on that knowledge to his sons and disciples. And it is coming down in parampara, from one spiritual teacher to the next spiritual student. Like that, it is coming down in disciplic succession, but it was transmitted and received orally before Kali Yuga. At the beginning of Kali Yuga, or at the end of Dwapar Yuga, the previous age, Vyasa-deva incarnated, and he could foresee that in Kali Yuga, people's memory will be short-lived. Therefore, he put down the Vedas in writing for the first time in this cycle of 4 yugas. In Satya Yuga, in Treta Yuga, in Dwapar Yuga, there was no need of writing down the Vedas. But in Kali Yuga, for Kali Yuga, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, Vyasa-deva put down the Vedas in writing for the first time. Now the content, if you ask, what was the content that Vyasa-deva put down when he wrote the Vedas, put the Vedas in writing? It is the same content which was imparted by Krishna to Brahma and is coming down in Parampara system. The same contents. Now, what is the need for Vyasa-deva to compile the Bhagavatam when the Vedas contain the essential knowledge that is required, spiritual knowledge included? The Vedas contain that knowledge, which is given by Krishna to Brahma, to Narada, to Vyasa, like that. It already is there. What is the need? Now, you should understand that the work what Vyasa-deva did, he put the Vedas in writing and he saw that this was very, very vast amount of knowledge. So Vyasa-deva, he divided the one Veda into 4. And that's how Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda were classified. Vedas were classified by Vyasa-deva. And then Vyasa-deva further considered the less intelligent people will not be able to assimilate the message of the Vedas because the language is very difficult. So he simplified the message of the Vedas in simple language. He explained it in form of itihasas and Puranas, especially the itihasas, Mahabharata. So he explained the Vedic message in the form of Mahabharata, especially for the less intelligent persons. Then he also compiled the Puranas, historical incidents in relationship with the Supreme Lord's various incarnations. That's called Puranas. These historical incidents were compiled by Vyasa-deva for different classes of people. Those in the mode of goodness, he compiled 6 Puranas, like Padma Purana, Vishnu Purana. And he compiled 6 more Puranas for people in the mode of passion. And 6 more Puranas he compiled for people in the mode of ignorance. And he selectively gave instructions suitable for those category of persons in those Puranas. Still, after doing so much of work, he was not satisfied. So then he compiled the Vedanta Sutra, which contains the essence, philosophical essence of all the Vedas, the philosophical essence, in the form of Vedanta Sutra. And that Vedanta Sutra was very, very, very concise. Sutra means a concise code of scriptures. So then this Vedanta Sutra was the most scholarly work of Vyasa-deva. Everything is explained with reference to reasoning as to cause and effect. In the Bhagavad-gita, there is a verse which explains this. Rishibhir bahudha gitam chandobhir vividai prathak brahma sutra padaischaiva hetu madhir vinishchitaihi. In the 13th chapter, 5th verse, this is explained that this knowledge, the Vedic knowledge, is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. And especially it is described in the Vedanta Sutra, also called the Brahma Sutra, and presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Hetu madhir vinishchitai. So this is Vyasa-deva's most scholarly work, most authoritative work. It is very, very concise, extremely concise. There are just 525 Vedanta Sutras. That's all. And to give an example of Vedanta Sutra, Athato Brahma Jignasa, Janmadhyasya Yataha, Shastra Yonitvat, Tattvamasi, Anandamayo Abhyasat, like that. Very, very short sutras, aphorisms, they say in English. So then Vyasa-deva considered that this Vedanta Sutra is giving the essence very nicely, but most people will not be able to understand. And even great scholars, Vedic scholars, may misinterpret this Vedanta Sutra. So therefore, Vyasa-deva himself compiled the Bhagavatam, which explains the Vedanta Sutra with reference to historical incidents in connection with the incarnations of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. So, Bhagavatam is a Purana. Bhagavatam is also a commentary by Vyasa-deva on the Vedanta Sutra, explaining the message of the Vedanta Sutra elaborately and in more direct terms or simple terms. Vyasa-deva is explaining. So Bhagavatam was compiled in this way. Not that what is there in the Bhagavatam is not there in the Vedas. Definitely what is there in the Bhagavatam is already there in the Vedas. Please don't misunderstand this point. Then what is the need if it's already there in the Vedas? Why should Vyasa-deva compile the Bhagavatam separately? As I explained, he had to simplify the Vedic texts. So he divided the one Veda into 4. He gave the message of Vedas in simple, easily understandable way for the less intelligent people in the form of Mahabharata. Then he compiled the Puranas for different classes of people, Sattvic, Tamasic and Rajasic people. And he also compiled the Vedanta Sutra and explained the Vedanta Sutra in the form of Bhagavad. Next question. In a normal yuga cycle, the yugas follow the order of Satya, Dwapara, Treta and Kali. Except once in a kalpa when the Lord appears in original form, the yuga order changes to Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. Is my understanding correct? Yes, your understanding is correct. It is perfectly right. Next question. Why is there more stress in present times? How was stress dealt with in Vedic times? People feel more stressed in modern times as compared to earlier days because the lifestyle has changed drastically. Drastic change in lifestyle. For example, in former times, people would not have to travel every day for work, for earning some livelihood. It is unknown. Daily traveling for work, for earning livelihood. Secondly, people would not perform ugra karma in former times. What is ugra karma? Working very, 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 very hard, especially nowadays in factories. People work in very, very hard work and in very difficult circumstances. Just like people work in coal mines. It is very, very dangerous. It is very risky. It is very stressful. People work in blast furnace for extracting iron from iron ore and also for making steel, preparing steel. Yeah. So iron and steel industry, it's horrible. I don't know if any of you have visited a iron and steel factory. I have been to one. I've been to, in fact, 3 or 4. It's horrible, horrible. It's called Ugra Karma. And in the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna talks about Sugra Karma. In the 16th chapter, when describing demoniac nature, there are two kinds of nature, people with two kinds of nature in this material world, in the created beings, human beings. A divine nature and demoniac nature. Divine nature people are having certain qualities, divine qualities, which are conducive for liberation from material bondage. And demoniac nature people have qualities which lead to material bondage. And this demoniac nature people is described that okay. The 9th verse of the 16th chapter describes some of the qualities by which demoniac persons work. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmano alpa buddhayah prabhavanti ugrakarmanaha kshayaya jagato ahitaha. The meaning of this verse is, following such conclusions. What are the conclusions? That the world is unreal, there is no God in control, there is no foundation. This world is produced of lust only, sex desire, the cause is lust. All such conclusions. The demoniac who are lost to themselves and have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Prabhavanti ugrakarmanaha kshayaya jagato ahitaha. So, Srila Prabhupada says that the demoniac are engaged in activities that lead the world to destruction. The Lord states here that they are less intelligent. The materialists who have no concept of God think that they are advancing. But according to Bhagavad-gita, they are unintelligent and devoid of all sense. They try to enjoy this material world to the utmost limit and therefore always engage in inventing something for sense gratification. This is the main point. In this present times, yes, people have to work and earn money for their livelihood. But the main concern has become how to gratify the senses, how to satisfy their senses at all costs. And to the extent that even in doing their duties, they are so much concerned with sense gratification than with actually carrying out the duties properly. So it's a civilization where people are mad after sense enjoyment. It's a very dangerous situation, present times. Such materialistic inventions are considered to be advancement of human civilization, but the result is that people grow more and more violent and more cruel. Cruel to animals and cruel to other human beings. They have no idea how to behave toward one another. Animal killing is very prominent amongst demoniac people. Such people are considered the enemies of the world because ultimately they will invent or create something which will bring about destruction to all. Indirectly, this verse anticipates the invention of nuclear weapons of which the whole world is today very proud. At any moment, war may take place and these atomic weapons may create havoc. Such things are created solely for the destruction of the world. And this is indicated here. Due to godlessness, such weapons are invented in human society. They are not meant for the peace and prosperity of the world. Srila Prabhupada says elsewhere, what is the need for inventing more destructive weapons like nuclear weapons? What's the need? Already every day people are dying. And people are dying not only due to natural death, but due to so many other causes, so many diseases, so many kinds of accidents, so much of violence. People are dying. What is the need for more weapons? But these people can't understand. This demoniac nature, people can't understand this. So, as it is, people are dying, and they are invented nuclear weapons for mass destruction. Can they do something for saving people who are dying? That they will never do. They can't do it. But they will invent weapons for mass destruction. That is the way their brain works. It's called demoniac mentality. Asuri Swabhava. Asuri Swabhava. So, also, animal killing was going on even earlier for meat eating. Some people would kill animals, but there was never an organized slaughterhouse killing millions of animals so brutally, so cruelly. This was never there in the former times. And now with so-called advancement, they have very, very sophisticated machinery, and poor animals, helplessly, they are killed. So cruelly, they are being killed. So that's why people who are involved in such killing will also have to die in such cruel ways. Especially in modern times, people who die in horrible road accidents. Horrible road accidents. Why? Why do they die in such horrible road accidents? Because they are killing animals in such cruel ways in slaughterhouses. So they also have to die in the same way. They cannot escape such cruelty shown to innocent, poor animals. Especially the cow. Cow killing is the greatest sin. What does Shastra say? The killer of the cow will be punished in hell and has to suffer as many years in that hell as there are hair on the body of the cow. So, very horrible punishment in hell awaits these cow killers. And apart from that, even in this life, these people who cruelly kill innocent animals, they have to die a horrible death. They're going to die a horrible death. So therefore, the living conditions have become very, very stressful, very bad. In the Vedic times, there's no question of dealing with stress because people never used to get stressed like that. Their lifestyle itself was much more peaceful. They were very, very peaceful, very peaceful. They would have some simple means of earning a livelihood. They didn't have to perform ugra karma for earning their livelihood. See? And by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, nature will supply plenty of our basic needs simply if we lead a pious life. Simply by leading a pious life, we'll get plenty of our basic necessities. Like the land will produce plenty of grains in the former times. Now the land doesn't yield as much as it used to give before. Cow gives very less milk now. But cows used to give a lot of milk in the former times. Like this, even rains. There used to be just sufficient rainfall. Now either we have excess rain, it's called ativrishti, or anavrishti, no rainfall at all in some places. So either scarcity of rain or too much rain, both of which are destructive, both of which are problematic for human beings. So the times have changed because people have become more sinful. People have become more materialistic. People have become more selfish. People are mad after sense gratification. The Bhagavatam says, Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma. People, when they become mad after sense gratification, they invariably become sinful. They commit sinful activities. So when they become more sinful, there has to be reactions. Reactions in the form of the land yielding less produce, then the trees, fruit trees don't give as much fruits as they used to give before. And the cows don't give enough milk. And people have to work so hard for getting very, very little money for just maintaining their, meeting their basic necessities. So this is the direction in which the whole world is progressing, and people are very proud of this. They say we are materially very advanced, but what is the result of this material advancement? More cruelty, as Prabhupada says in this purport, more violence, more himsa, more suffering, and life is becoming very complicated. People are becoming more and more entangled in so many complexities of this material world. Ultimately, most people don't have peace at all. Stress means no peace. So therefore, the way to deal with stress is to return to our basic methodology of living as people used to live in the former times. Simplify our lifestyle. Simplify our lifestyle. Not work so hard simply for earning money. And most importantly, people should also realize that they have to return to the land and cows for getting their basic necessities primarily. If very few people are working on the land for growing food, and most people are working in factories for creating artificial necessities, then this is a very dangerous trend. Anyway, people will be forced to return to the land when there will be scarcity of food. They'll be forced to return to the land. You have to grow your food. You just cannot simply work in some factory, earn some money, and buy your food always. That cannot be, that is not a viable method of living in this world. Yeah? People should primarily grow food grains, fruits, vegetables, at least for their own requirement, minimum. That is the way of living in this world. And it's a very natural, healthy lifestyle. It does not involve stress. It does not involve stress. It's very, very peaceful and sober way of living. Okay. Next question. Is our sun globe stationary or does it move in our universe? Please explain in detail. Now, according to the Vedic scriptures, all the planets are moving in their orbit. All the planets are moving their orbit, including the sun. Sun is also moving. The Brahma Samhita says, Yachakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rashesha Teja Yasyagnaya Brahmati Samruta Kala Chakro Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhaja. This verse says that the sun planet, which is like the eye of the universal form, the Supreme Lord, is actually moving in its orbit according to the Kala Chakra, according to the cycle of time. And it's a movement of sun which defines the movement of time. It is the movement of the sun. All calculations are done based on movement of the sun, of the time. So the sun globe is never stationary. It is always moving. All the planets are moving, not only the sun. And a detailed explanation of this is available in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There the movement of the planets is described, and the movement of the sun globe is described. The movement of the moon, the movement of the Mars, all the important planets is described, how it affects our life. That is also described. Everything is described in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. 6th question, the next question. What is your approach to study Bhagavad-gita from scratch? Study Bhagavad-gita from scratch. Best is to, first of all, read this Bhagavad-gita cover to cover. And then come back and start studying by carefully going through. Let's say you take the first verse. Okay? The first verse, you read the verse and then read the translation after reading the verse. Then try to connect the verse with the translation by going through the word for word meaning. Srila Prabhupada has particularly given this word for word meaning to help us learn Sanskrit and also to understand properly the verse itself. Carefully understand the verse itself. Not mechanically simply reading the verse, the translation purport. No. You have to also do some correlation between the verse and the translation by using the word for meaning. Then after that, go through the purport and try to connect different points in the purport with the verse or with the translation. Sometimes the verse will give an overall summary of a chapter. For example, in all the chapters, 18 chapters, the verse to the purport to the first verse of each chapter gives in brief a summary of what can be expected in this chapter as it contains. So, because the first verse of the first chapter is the opening of the Bhagavad-gita itself, Prabhupada has briefly explained Bhagavad-gita itself. What is it in this purport? Bhagavad-gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya. So here itself, Prabhupada is telling what is the Bhagavad-gita. It is a theistic science of God. It is exclusively Bhagavad-gita. Literally means the song of God. So the song of God explains the science of God. In a scientific manner, God has been explained in this Bhagavad-gita. So it's called theistic science. Now it says here, Prabhupada says from the Gita Mahatmya, that one should read Bhagavad-gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna. So Prabhupada's Bhagavad-gita as it is actually the Gita explained by the devotee of Sri Krishna. Exactly according to what Gita Mahatmya says, you see, Prabhupada is that devotee of Krishna who's explained the Bhagavad-gita for us to understand properly as recommended in the Gita Mahatmya. And try to understand it without personally motivated interpretation. So we should not interpret ourselves, nor should we read anybody else's interpretation. Now, Prabhupada is not interpreting the Gita. He is explaining the Gita based on the parampara system, the knowledge received in disciplic succession, as Krishna explains in the 4th chapter. Like this, the purport contains essentially, it explains the purpose of the verse, but sometimes the purport explains more than just that verse. It explains also the chapter overall idea, what is presented in the chapter. At the last verse purport of every chapter, Prabhupada summarizes the chapter again. Again summarizes the chapter. And in between, Prabhupada sometimes explains in detail a particular verse, a word explained, used in the verse. For example, in this first chapter, first verse, there is the term Dharmakshetre Kurukshetra. Now, Prabhupada explains this word Dharmakshetra very detailed way. It is a very significant word, and it is being explained by Prabhupada. What is the significance of this term Dharmakshetra used in this verse? Prabhupada explains in detail. So like this, you have to carefully link up the different points of the purport with the verse and with the chapter, with the flow of the explanation given by Krishna as Krishna develops the subject matter from the first chapter to the 18th chapter through the different verses. Like that, you closely follow. In this way, you study Bhagavad-gita, then you will definitely appreciate and be able to follow understand the teachings and apply them. Most importantly, apply them in your life to get the highest benefit of spiritual perfection. Next question. What is intelligence? How do you sharpen your intelligence? Intelligence is given, a definition is given of intelligence in the Bhagavad-gita itself, in one of the purports. I'll read that for you. In the 10th chapter, verses 4 and 5, Krishna has described some qualities. Different qualities of the living beings are described by Krishna here. The first quality that is described is intelligence, buddhi. So Prabhupada defines intelligence refers to the power of analyzing things in proper perspective. What is intelligence defined as? Power of analyzing things in proper perspective. So how do you sharpen your intelligence? The simplest method is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Our intelligence becomes sharper when we chant Hare Krishna. Next question. How Mayawadi focus on God if they do not believe in the form of God? How can they focus on Nirakar? That is explained in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. I'll just open that verse, 12.4, 3, 4, 5. In 3 verses explained, 12th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. The 3rd and 4th verse I'll read. Ye tu aksharam anirdesham avyaktam paryupasate sarvatragam achintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayaha te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. The meaning of these two verses is, those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So here Krishna is using so many terms which help us get an idea that this impersonal conception of the absolute truth, or impersonal feature, nirakar, that is very, 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 very difficult to conceive or to worship or to understand. You see? And Krishna in the 5th verse says, Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta asakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham dehavadvir avapyate. This verse, particularly the 5th verse, Krishna says, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Klesho adhikataraha tesham. Very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. We are all embodied. That means we have got a material body covering our spirit soul. So for all embodied souls, this progress on the path of impersonal realization is always difficult. It is very, very troublesome. So therefore, Krishna is certainly not recommending this worship of the impersonal feature, or realizing the impersonal feature through the impersonal method. Krishna is not recommending that at all. So if you ask this question, how do they concentrate or focus on God? How do they meditate on the impersonal Brahman? So the method is, one of the methods is, I don't know if there are more methods. I know one method they do is neti, neti, neti. Eliminating all material varieties as not God. Na iti. God is, or the absolute truth, or God is not earth, not God is not fire, God is not water, God is not air, God is not a sky, God is not the combination of any of these two or more elements, God is not matter. But they eliminate all matter varieties, material forms, material substances, material manifestations, everything they eliminate. So it's a definition by negation. If you ask any follower of the Mayavada philosophy, what is God? They say we cannot define God in brief. So they'll only say what is not God. So it is definition by negation. But if you ask a devotee, a bhakti yogi, what is God? Simple, he'll say Krishna is God. Very, very simple. Krishna is God. So this process of impersonal realization or worship of the impersonal feature of God is very, very difficult. It is very troublesome. It is very, very complicated. So it is not recommended. Certainly it's not recommended. Next question. How to get focus on chanting without desiring? Desire, you mean material desire? We should become free from material desires for spiritual progress, for spiritual advancement, for ultimate liberation. We should become free from material desires. Now, material desires are a result of material association. Material association is because we want to enjoy materially. So when we start practicing spiritual life, the proper practice of Krishna consciousness, at least, Bhakti Yoga, definitely purifies our heart of material desires. And as we go on chanting, following the rules, that is, while chanting, we should not do any other activity. We should chant a fixed number of times every day. And we should hear the very sound of the Hare Krishna mantra we chant. So like if I say Hare Krishna, I should hear every word of this mantra. Whatever I am chanting, I should hear. This is called japa. So this japa we have to do attentively hearing, and this has to be practiced. You have to practice this. And there are tips given for this practice in Srila Prabhupada's books. And this has been compiled very nicely in one book called Namamrita. Namamrita. It's not written by Prabhupada, but it is a compilation by a disciple of Prabhupada of all what Prabhupada says in various books of his about chanting, how to focus on chanting, how to improve the quality of chanting, etc. So I request the questioner to actually go through this Namamrita book, which is available. Soft copy is available, hard copy is also available. You can get either of them and you can go through it and follow. Next question, how do you become responsible towards your duties? Becoming responsible towards one's duties is possible if you become spiritually enlightened. Spiritually enlightened. Those who are spiritually enlightened understand that I am taking so much from others or from nature or from God. So then I have to actually give back at least some portion by doing my duties towards God, towards nature, towards others. I've got duties to perform. So we become enlightened in that way, and then we become responsible. Those who don't practice spiritual life will not become responsible towards their duties, will not be responsible or will not be able to become responsible either. So the only way is spiritual enlightenment. Next question. How do I balance my life as a woman who is working and also has to take care of family at home? I hardly find time to execute spiritual duties. I'm sorry, I'm going to read the question again. How do I balance my life spiritually and materially as a woman who is working and also has to take care of a family at home? I hardly find time to execute spiritual duties and hence end up with a frustrated life. Can you please guide me? Now, the nature of material activities is such that it will generally fill up all available time. So it's not just your particular situation, but anybody in general in this material world, when they try to do some material duties, they find that it takes away all the available time. So therefore, in order to make at least some time for doing some spiritual activities, one has to um, do only essential duties, material duties, and that also have to be limited. That also has to be limited. It should not occupy all available time. Just like I'll give a simple example. If after you get up in the morning, you have duties to do in the morning, you have duties to do in the afternoon, you have duties to do in the evening, you have duties to do at night before going to bed. Yes. So therefore, ideally, spiritual life means rise early in the morning before you normally begin your morning duties. Rise little early in the morning. And that little early, you rise early in the morning for the sake of doing these spiritual activities, which is the early morning is the best time due to several reasons. One is that after night's rest, your mind is in the best condition to actually do spiritual activities. That is one thing. Second thing, there is minimum disturbance early in the morning. Third is that if you do spiritual activities before beginning your other material duties, then your mind is well prepared for carrying out your material duties without becoming too much disturbed or too much agitated, too much anxious or too much worked up. So in all ways, it is advisable you rise early in the morning and do the spiritual activities. Minimum you can do is chant 108 times the Hare Krishna mantra. This takes 10 minutes. So at least begin by getting up 10 minutes before your normal time. And after this 10 minutes of chanting, after you wake up, then you do all your other duties, whatever is required to be done. Next question, how to realize instructions of Bhagavad-gita? Now, the instructions of Bhagavad-gita realization means putting them into practice. Putting them into practice. So, begin by the simple instruction of Krishna that you chant Hare Krishna every day. Krishna's name, holy name basically. Chant Hare Krishna every day. That is realizing the instruction of Krishna. Man mana. Krishna says, always think of me. So how do we always think of Krishna? By always chanting his holy name. Especially in this age, Kali Yuga, it is recommended to chant Krishna mantra. And even thinking of Krishna is best done in this age by chanting his holy name. So this is explained by Prabhupada in the Bhagavad-gita introduction. So the first realization of this instructions of Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita is to begin chanting Hare Krishna. Like this, one by one, and Prabhupada is explained in the purports. How do we follow each of those instructions in our present time? Prabhupada has explained that. Krishna says, you eat only remnants of food offered in sacrifice to the Lord. So Prabhupada explains, food should be offered to Krishna, and the remnants of such offered food should be taken as prasadam. So like this, every instruction Krishna has given, Prabhupada has explained how to follow that, how to practice that. That is that's the meaning of realizing the instruction of Bhagavad-gita. Then the next part of this question, Does controlling the mind depend on ego or identity one possesses? Is there any relationship between mind and ego? Now, the word mind is sometimes used to indicate the subtle body which consists of mind, intelligence, and ego. And if you specifically mean what is the difference between, or what is the relationship between mind as the part of the subtle body and the ego as another part of the subtle body? Yes. Though it is explained in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, where there is the Sankhya philosophy explaining the different elements of material nature, the 24 elements. So mind and ego are two elements, subtle elements. Even in the Bhagavad-gita in 7th chapter, 4th verse, it is explained. Mind and ego are two elements, subtle elements. Now, the mind cannot be separated from the subtle body, or the ego cannot be separated from the subtle body, because the subtle body acts in three different functional ways, which we call it as mind, intelligence, and ego. So mind is the seat of thinking, the seat of emotions, and ego is the identity. Who am I, or what I think I am? That is ego. Identity. So, the relationship between the mind and ego is, now, these 5 gross elements which make up the gross body and the 3 elements which make up the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. Altogether, all these are described as the working senses, the senses of perception, and the faculty of thinking, feeling, and willing. This is how it is explained in practical terms. So, the thinking and the sense of identity, these two actually are connected with our understanding of who we are. And based on that understanding, we think in a certain way, we have got certain feelings, and we perform certain actions, or we make a decision to do something or abstain from something. Our whole life is conducted based on this understanding of our identity, what we are as ego. It's like, I think I'm a man, but that man refers to the external body, a type of a male form of the human body. I am not the body, I am spirit soul. But this ego, which we accurately should call it false ego, it's not the real ego, it's not my real identity. My real identity is spiritual. So this false identity, which is the imposition on the real identity, this is the body, the male body. So this is what I wrongly think. And not only this body, but also in terms of the mind. Like, I think I am intelligent, or somebody else may think I'm not very intelligent. This is also ego. What we think we are. This is ego. And mind as an element, it is actually a subtle element, but as a function, speaking of function, the thinking, seat of emotions, that's what the mind is. And it's connected to the ego, that it affects the ego. Or based on the ego, we have certain way of thinking, and both are interconnected in that way. So if you want to understand the details of what each of these elements are and how they are interconnected and how they function and what are the different effects, that you have to study the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the portion described by Kapila as Sankhya philosophy. Lord Kapila describes to his mother Sankhya philosophy on the elements that make up this matter in this material world, the 24 elements. He explains that. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.